late just because
No problem.
technology and I are not good friends. That's what that is. But you are here for a coffee chat between me and Neely. We want y'all to interject as you see fit. We do this as more of a time to connect with you and each other and be able to just, you know, hang out for a little bit. Hey Blaze, welcome. We don't generally have a hard, fast topic. This is more about just the community aspect rather than trying to give you some meat and potatoes, although they would have to be like cauliflower instead of potatoes on a low carb diet.
Yeah,
So
cauliflower.
that's what we got going on here. We are coffee chatting. I have a coffee with some eggnog. I make homemade eggnog, and so I turned it into a latte. What do you have, Neely?
Same as ever, coffee with cream. I don't
Coffee.
deviate. When it comes to coffee, I don't deviate. That's what I like, and that's what I do. I've been doing a
Yeah.
lot more tea though recently since I've gotten the element, the chocolate medley
Right.
element stuff. It's got
Hmm.
me back into tea, so that's fun.
That
I get the
yeah,
variety there.
I ebb and flow with tea. I feel like for a while there, I was really gung ho on like oolong or like peppermint tea if I wanted herbal teas or stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I just I struggle much with it nowadays. Oh well, I'll come back around. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Good morning, Kimberly from Dallas, Oregon.
Ah, yes. Yay!
Familiar with that?
I'm trying to get my okay. I'm seeing an
Grapefruit element. How did I
I
not know
want
that?
I want that. It's a
I haven't
seasonal
seen
flavor
grape.
that they've done.
Oh, I just got my chocolate medleys in. I ordered extra of the lemon habanero, the mango chili, or is it lemon chili? No, it feels like it's lemon habanero.
Mango chili. Yeah, yeah. Mango
Yeah, and the
chili.
mango chili. So I got a box of each of those, and then I ordered 2 boxes of the chocolate medley, and something rather entertaining happened. I told my husband that I really liked them in my coffee when they were that kind of like the chocolatey flavors. And he said, "Well, I'm going to try it out. Is it like putting cream in your coffee?" And I said, "No, it's more like just adding flavor and electrolytes." Hello, Jacques. Um, it's just like adding some flavor, like the tiniest bit of sweetness but flavor. And he was like, okay. And I said, now be wary, it's salt, so it's giving you your electrolytes,
Mhm.
so expect saltiness to it. And he was like how salty? And I was like, you can definitely feel the salt. Like it's good, hearty electrolytes. And he was like, okay, okay. I'm gonna give it a try. Should I add half and half? I said, for you, yes. For the first go around, I would. He takes some sips of it. He tried the chocolate caramel and he was like, wow,
It's
that
intense.
that is much. And I said, yeah,
Yeah.
don't you like it? He was like, yeah, I don't think it's gonna be for me all the time. But he really likes the other flavors. I think he
So
was
Jack,
expecting more coffee and less like chocolatey coat or carameliness.
yeah,
And he was like, I feel like I'm just drinking like a hot chocolatey kind of thing. And I was like, right.
yeah. So
It's
Jeff is
delightful.
obsessed with the salted caramel chais now. And I
Yeah.
found that I like it best and he likes it best with half a packet. The full packet is good, but it is pretty salty.
Well,
But
and if
half a
you
packet is great and then it extends it, so
that's right.
half a
You can have 2 experiences instead of just one.
exactly.
It's really
Exactly.
nice.
So good.
Blaze, the grapefruit is seasonal, June and July. Okay, well, this coming summertime, I will be buying 16 boxes, Blaze.
Oh my gosh. How long does that last?
That's commitment. That
That is.
is commitment right there. And Jack, you used an entire packet. Hi, Keto Matrix. I missed you. Welcome. Um, so yesterday I was talking to some friends and we were mentioning how, like it's so dark nowadays. And I feel like such a baby since we left, the further north areas that we lived in. I mean, when we lived in Alaska, we would have, maybe 5 hours a day for daylight. And when the children were young, that was really great because they never slept unless it was dark out. So it helped me
Mhm.
out tremendously. And then as they got older, more activities happened. And now I just feel like I'm bone tired by like 5:30 in the evening. And I was mentioning that on my what I eat in a day video. And I was just like, oh, it's just so dark now. It's so, so dark. And I mentioned that to some of my friends yesterday. No, today is Tuesday. So it was Sunday that I mentioned it to them. They said, actually, did you hear that they're going to be getting rid of daylight savings time? And I was like, yeah, I had heard that. But I'm confused how that's going to help people if we're going to not jump forward again and we're just going to stay in like standard time, which is what we're in now. Like, how does that go through and really kind of equalize itself when spring is like daylight time versus the standard time? Like standard sort of like implies to me that it's going to be that thing, like that's the base. And
Right.
I'm so confused. And they said, no, 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 we're supposed to jump ahead again in the spring, and that's the very last time. And I'm
Mhm.
like, where is this information? I need
I
to
know, I
know.
haven't I keep hearing it too, but I haven't heard it from an official source. I just keep hearing it. So,
Is
we'll
it just
see,
going to be
I
like a
guess.
mass, like grassroots movement? Like we're just all like, okay, come spring, we're
We're
going to
done.
jump forward, and that is it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
That
I just
concerns me for
waiting to see.
Arizona because they are in two separate times during daylight saving or yeah, during daylight savings time. They're in two separate
Mhm.
times depending on if you're on the Navajo reservation or if you're like mainstream Arizona. It's
It's so
just
confusing.
living down there and traveling from the res down to Scottsdale zone, that was always an adventure and a half for sure.
Fun times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
imagine it's hard to live places that are, like, right on the border of because it's like, this store has this hours, but it means this, and this store that's just a couple miles away has these hours, and I mean, it's yeah. Anyways, fun times.
Well, when we would, so I would have to drive to Flagstaff in order to get, it's stuck in the house as far as daylight savings time is concerned. Thank you, Blaze.
Pass it all.
Let's just clear it all. Let's just do away with the things. We have technology now. We can see at night. The driving from northeastern Arizona through Flagstaff, we would have to go there for like doctors and things like that since we are not Navajo. So we didn't get to use the amenities that were there on the reservation. It would always confuse the ever living daylights out of me because there would be one spot where it would start like, okay, this tribe actually does observe daylight savings time, but this tribe doesn't. So trying to figure out where you were always, it was, oh man, it was exhausting.
Yep. Don't need that in my life.
No, nobody really does. But okay, so last week we discussed just sort of what the intent was for these chats, just kind of hanging out. And if there was like a question that we could answer that wouldn't really take ages to answer, we would try to maybe plug those into these live chats. And
Yeah.
one
So feel
question,
free to ask questions.
definitely,
Mhm.
one of the questions was on a Fab4 chat that we had last month, which feels like ages ago. It feels like we need to be doing another
Yeah.
one of those. Ooh,
Do
we should
we?
talk
We
to
need to
Amy.
get it on the schedule.
Yeah.
Amy, are you here?
Where is Amy? Um, but there was a comment asking about THM. Do you remember the comment, Nili?
I remember that it existed. I don't remember who, and I last week I was like, oh, I should have remembered and gone back and seen who it was from, and then I didn't do that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there was something to the effect of why are we no longer Trim Healthy Mama? Like, why are
yes.
we no longer following that particular way of eating? You could call it a diet, I suppose. But I would like to lob that tennis ball into your court and ask you, why did you deviate from THM?
Yeah, well, first off, if there's anyone that doesn't know what THM is, it is Trim Healthy Mama, and it's a diet that was started by two sisters, and it's turned into a whole empire. They have products, books, cookbooks. it's a big thing that lots of people are into, and it's great. And I wanted to say, got to get my brain working here. Just, oh goodness. Okay, so I wanted to say that, like, I have no issues with THM. I think it's a great diet. If someone were in my life were to come and say, "Hey, I'm starting the THM diet," I would be like, "Oh, yay, that's awesome! It's a great diet." You know, I think it's very solid. Their basic premise is that if you want to lose weight, and a way to stay healthy is to not eat both a large amount of carbs and a large amount of fat in the same meal. So it's kind of like carb cycling, but even just every meal you choose if you want it to be higher carb, lower fat, or higher fat, lower carb. And you just go back and forth and you can kind of, make it work however you want. But you're never eating like butter on or a lot of butter on your baked potato, or they don't even have potatoes on your sweet potato, or a big fatty steak along with fruit.
Quinoa.
You're separating it, and there's a lot of science behind that. And I think it's a really solid approach if you want to incorporate carbs in your diet. So for me, when I came to Trim Healthy Mama, it was actually after my second attempt at keto, my first attempt at true keto. It was back when keto first was coined keto, and nutritional ketosis was the big thing. And that was the focus back then, was very high fat, keeping the protein lower. Protein turns to chocolate cake in your body after you eat it. So you have to keep that really low, as well as keeping carbs really low in order to be in a really deep state of ketosis. So I did that, and for several months, and was totally wrecked by the end of it. And at the time, I didn't realize that I needed more protein. And I wondered, thinking back, if I had just added more protein at that point, if I would have been fine. But in my mind at the time, it was keto is not working. The only alternative is to add carbs to my diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I used THM as a way to introduce carbs back to my diet, which I think is a great way if you want to introduce carbs back to your diet. I think it's an excellent way to do it, because we can get into a lot of trouble if we just, keep our fat super high in every meal and then just throw carbs on top of that. Oh man, my body was gonna like go nuts. And yeah, and so using the approach of THM where you separate the carbs and fats into separate meals is a really great way to it got my body used to carbs again.
Yeah.
Really effectively. I ended because when I was, in the state of being like messed up from the keto, I started eating carbs because because I started eating carbs because it was like I was, struggling so hard, and like my body started blowing up, and you know how it is if you're eating keto and you just throw in a bunch of carbs. But then starting the THM diet, it's like I lost all the weight that I had gained adding carbs back in while still eating carbs the THM way. So, yeah. So, anyways, that was my initial experience with it. And that was extremely positive. And I really, really liked it. So you're frozen on my screen, but I can still hear you. So I think we're okay. If any of us freeze, you guys feel free to let us know. Okay, I think you're back. Okay, but I can hear you. All right. Anyways. So I was a very positive experience in the beginning, but what I felt as I continued is that I didn't get to the point of health that I really wanted to. Eating the carbs in the way that they have it portioned out, in meals, energizing meals are the ones with carbs. I never felt satisfied with, because you can only have like the small amount, and then you can't have fat with it. And so you're eating like lean protein plus a half a cup of brown rice or something.
Right.
And it was just miserable. I hated those meals. because I just never felt satisfied. And I eventually gave up the idea that I needed to have a high amount of carbs in my diet in order to be healthy. Like I'd kind of thought that because of my experience with the way I did keto before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got to the point where I realized I felt my best just getting rid of the carbs.
Yeah.
And basically that's it. So there wasn't any big like revelation that this was a terrible diet or anything like that. It was just that I listened to my body and I found how I felt best.
Right.
What about you?
That sums up that statement. Felt like crap on carbs and I felt fantastic on fat. Like that is the most distilled version of why I shifted and from Trim Healthy Mama over to just like a run of the mill keto friendly way of eating. And I never really got super involved in tracking all the things all the time. And I think what I appreciated about Trim Healthy Mama when I first learned about it was the only thing that I really had to stay focused on was the number of carbs I was eating if I had a high carb, low fat meal. Like, so focusing on numbers only on those energizing meals,
Yeah,
because if it was
because
a
there's no
fat
limit on
meal,
fat.
yeah, I was like, oh, eggs and cabbage sold, steak and broccoli sold. I can do that without even considering things twice. And I was never very reserved with my volume of meat that I would consume. I went from eating a standard American diet to finding out that I have a TMJ disorder and needed to go on a liquid diet to allow my mandibles to heal because I didn't have enough cartilage between those two bones, so they were rubbing together all the time. And going on liquid diet, I wound up dropping a lot of weight because it's very difficult to not consume like, it's difficult to consume enough food
Yeah.
when you're only everything. And I did that for a solid year before I was finally in a place where I stopped nursing my oldest so I could take different anti-inflammatories as needed. And I had splints for my jaws to sort of help them have more of a reprieve when I wasn't talking. Um, and after that point, I kind of had gotten into the whole like I'd been making my own yogurt. I had been doing a lot of things from scratch at that point. So I was really comfortable and confident in the kitchen. And I was really jazzed about the nourishing traditions way of eating at that point. I got super obsessed with eating fermented cod liver oil with the the butter oil in it.
I tried
And
to do that and I never could be consistent with it. I was just like, oh god.
I I was
More power to
able
you.
to, when we were able to afford it. This was a period of time when it was like it was gut wrenching, and I thought I'm gonna need this cod liver oil and butter oil to help my bones because I felt like all of my teeth weakened after pregnancy. Come to find out, if you were a kid that had a lot of ear infections as a child and had been given amoxicillin a
Mhm.
lot, there is some correlation between softer teeth and heavy amoxicillin use. And I had terrible ear infections as a child, multiple tubes put in the ears, all that jazz. So I wanted to fix those issues. And I was really excited about cooking everything from scratch, nourishing tradition style. I was sprouting grains. I was soaking all of my grains, doing everything, not the kimchi, but like the krauts and
Mhm.
the kombucha and all that stuff. And I still felt really tired on all of that because it was a lot of carbs. And I tend to not feel good on carbs, but I didn't know that yet. We moved to Alaska, or were we in Utah? I can't remember. Regardless, I learned about the singing canary drink. And I
Mhm.
always say that that was kind of like my gateway into Trim Healthy Mama. I saw that and I thought, I'm so tired all the time. It must be my adrenals. Singing canary was sort of touted as an adrenal supporting drink because of the all
Turmeric
of the
and lemon.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through and I did singing canary. And then that following year, I think that was in 2015 because we must have been in Alaska. Then in 2016, I watched the video that I think a lot of people do watch when they are first investigating Trim Healthy Mama. And it was that like hour-long video of the two of them, the sisters, at a conference explaining their journey into their current way of health.
Mm-hmm.
And it just convinced me right then and there, like, oh, of course, I'm always eating my bread with tons of butter, and now my pants don't
Mm-hmm.
fit. This makes so much
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I told my husband about it, and he said, well, we can't afford the books. So you're just going to have to figure it out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to YouTube and the interwebs, I was able to sort of piecemeal it all together and figure it out. And within 3 weeks of starting that at the beginning of 2016, I realized I was eating no carbs because I felt like garbage on carbs. I was always starving. I was
Mm-hmm.
never feeling like I had enough energy. I was very sluggish on carbs. And so at that three week mark, I thought, what is this? This is a lot of fat and a lot of protein, but no carbs. What is this called? And so I kind of did keto without knowing I was doing keto. And then I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. I am so jazzed about this. This connects with my brain. Everything is firing. I feel awesome on fat. So I said, well, Trim Healthy Mama has a lot of good quality principles, and I can pull from certain aspects. And I appreciate so very much the things that I did learn from Trim Healthy Mama. But now I can apply that information in a way that actually benefits my individual body chemistry. Oh dear. Oh dear. Did something go wonky on y'all for y'all?
Uh,
Are you there?
I think it's fine. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You're a little
It
bit
just
fuzzy, but I can still see you.
it just went like wicked dark.
On me or on you?
My screen, like everything is dark.
Oh, well, we can. I don't think it changed on our end. I can
Okay,
still
good.
see you.
Well,
Fine.
we'll just keep going forward. Anyway,
Weird.
Trim Healthy Mama taught me a lot of things, but I found out I don't like carbs. My body doesn't
Mhm.
respond well. So keto it has been. I did go back to Trim Healthy Mama when I was pregnant with Lauren, our third, and that's when I started my YouTube channel. So I was doing THM at the beginning of that experience just because in my brain I felt like I have to have carbs to produce milk. And that was like the most important thing to me at the time. Just being able to nurse my baby. And we did that for a solid 16 months with that one. And then I was like, okay, I'm all done. I need to stop eating
Mm,
carbs because I do
mm.
not feel great.
Yeah.
I had good
Yeah.
supply, but
Yeah, carbs can do that. So is it during when I was doing THM, is that when you found my channel?
that
Is that
is
how?
you
Okay.
you were pregnant with Renee, I believe.
Yeah,
Gosh,
because it
what
was
is she?
after charity that I started the THM.
Mm-hmm. You and you
Mm.
had like really long hair, and I loved your braid that you always
I
had, and I
love
was
my
like, oh,
too.
I wish I could grow my hair that long. Oh my god.
Oh, I miss my braid. If I could, I would still have it.
Yeah,
Iron deficiency does that to a person. Yeah.
it'll happen.
Yeah,
It'll come together someday. Someday you'll find the
I think
balance.
so. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
I'll be like the old granny with the long gray braid.
I get so jazzed when I find gray hairs and I'm like, oh, look, there's another one. And then I get really sad if it falls out and when I'm washing my hair or something. I'm like, no, not my precious white hair.
Mm.
I've worked
Have
hard for
you seen
you.
have you seen Three Rivers Homestead here on YouTube?
Uh
Had her eighth kid and she wears like a head scarf and she has this super long braid and it's like the thickest braid and it goes all the way down her back.
I'm gonna have to go look her up.
Yeah,
My
she's
oldest,
really great. She does all kinds of canning. Actually, you would love it. Yeah,
I'm so
she does
obsessed
tons
with
of
canning
canning.
right
She
now.
does like challenges. Every little bit counts challenge and stuff. I love watching her stuff.
Well, I'm gonna have to go watch her. My 12-year-old, she'll get out of the shower, we'll let her air or her hair air dry for a little bit, and then she always wants me to French braid it so that it doesn't get
Mhm.
tangled because there is so much hair, so much hair.
Mhm.
So I go through and I braid it, and it's like It is. It's like a rope. And
I'm
I'm
jealous.
like, we could literally pull the Queen Mary into port with your hair. This is a
That's
lot.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, if nothing else, which there are a lot of benefits we've both received from THM, but if those didn't even exist, it brought us together. So, I mean,
That
can't
was
be
worth
bad,
it.
right? Yeah, totally worth it.
And we'll finally actually get to meet in April at
Oh,
KetoCon,
Keto.
like in
Yeah.
the flesh. It'll be so cool.
It's all
I'm
coming together. It's been a long
so
time
coming.
coming, and now it's finally coming full circle.
Yep. And then we can be awkward together in person.
Yeah, that'll be great. And our husbands can be awkward together in person. Oh man, I'm so looking forward to that.
I know, right? Husbands are the best when they're just like, I don't know how to support my wife in this situation.
Yeah. When it's like our world, it's like they're just there for the ride.
Yeah, they'll be there to like hold any kind of things that we collect through the vendor hall or wherever.
Carry our purse
Be like,
for us.
here, can you take that back to the car? Can you take this? Can you manage that? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be
It's
great.
gonna be awesome.
All right.
Alan asked if they have Trim Healthy Dad.
I think that they started calling it like trim healthy papas. Like it's
Yeah.
they
Like a
they
Facebook group.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
Facebook.
I
I've never Facebooked during the Trim Healthy Mama era. I divorced
know there are
Facebook.
so many Facebook groups.
Yeah, I
I I
divorced
I I ended up having to just get out of all of them because there's so many.
yeah.
It's
Well,
ridiculous.
I mean, I divorced the Facebook back in like 2015 when it was just like
Mhm.
too much for me. I was like, I'm out. I can't anymore. There's too much opinion happening everywhere, too many feelings, too many like divisions. It just felt like an overwhelming experience for me at that point. And I'd been part of the Facebook since 2004. So it was like, maybe we should
Mhm.
go our separate ways. And then I felt a lot of relief from not being part of all that. So
Yeah.
oftentimes people will say, like, there's this thing on this group on this Facebook. And I'm like, yeah,
Cool.
good to know.
Keep going. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me know
I
how
I
it
find
goes.
I don't use Facebook very often anymore.
Right.
It's still there, but and it is helpful, like, if I'm researching a specific subject to go find
Oh,
group. I've actually like, Levi has a weird skin condition that it took forever to figure out, and the most information I got was from a Facebook group of people dealing with the same thing.
mm,
Trying to find, like, articles about it, not very helpful at all. You hear
sure.
personal experience, it was really helpful. So, I use it for that, but, like, the whole social side of it, not really.
It's
Not
so
really.
hard. It's
Yeah.
definitely not my jam. I
Yeah.
definitely much prefer the search slash community aspect of the YouTubes.
Yeah. YouTube's is special.
It's where I jam.
Um, yeah. So I was gonna say a few more thoughts about THM.
Sure.
So I love the simplicity of the premise of the diet. And I
Yeah.
think I've used that those nuggets
Hmm.
moving forward in my life. Like I think it's really solid. And I hear that idea of separating carbs and fat um, reiterated through other people. Like it just seems like a really solid basis to base the diet on.
Hmm.
What kind of turned me off from being part of the community because and like I said, no hard feelings about the diet. This is all about my own personal choice of what I participate in and what I promote and that kind of thing. Because I was doing recipe reviews of their cookbook on my YouTube channel. I
Hmm.
know I brought a lot of people to my YouTube channel through that were interested in THM, and I'm really thankful for that. But it kind of got to the point, it felt like, where instead of empowering me to, with these foundational principles to figure out what works best for me, it was more like a top down, like the people, at the top of the diet were approving or disapproving specific foods or specific brands. Or, I remember the Rebel ice cream came out, or Halo Top ice cream came out,
Hmm.
and it was like, well, this technically fits into the nutritional
Macros.
categories of, this kind of meal, but then there was a extra rule that was put on top of it that you can't eat more than this amount, even though it could fit into your, anyways, it was just like rule upon rule upon rule upon rule. And it's like, instead of people being empowered, or I'll say, instead of me being empowered to figure things out for myself, which I like to do,
Yes.
it was more like, oh, let's let them figure it all out, and let's just get a you know
A
the Ten
list.
Commandments,
Yeah.
and keep adding on to it of
Yeah.
what's approved and what's not approved. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I know that not everyone is like me, in that I want to get into the nitty gritty, and I want to figure it out for myself, and I want to know, for my body, I know that almonds don't work well for me, but they use almonds
Yeah.
all the time, and so it's totally approved. And I use, a little bit of arrowroot powder in certain things that works fine for me, but that's
And
like
they would say,
anathema.
no.
Yeah. And so, it's just things like that where it's like I want the freedom to make my own, like figure out what works best for me.
Right.
And when you're first getting started in health and you don't really have a framework like that, I think using someone else's framework is a great place to start. And so if
Right.
someone would come and say to me, I'm starting Trim Healthy Mama and I'm using their rules, I'm like, that's great. And if that works for you for the rest of your life, that's great. If
Right.
not, like, feel free to
Be
tweak it
willing to
and move forward.
deviate.
Yeah, but it was like in that community, it felt like any deviation from that, and it's like, oh, your post is blocked, or you're not approved, or and I totally get that, because if I were running a empire like that, you know, there it would be difficult to deal with all these different opinions and people doing their own,
Right.
tweaks
Yeah.
on things like that. That's I get that. Like, there's nothing negative. It was just enough for me to be like, I don't really fit in perfectly with their all of their rules.
Yep.
So I just need to, find what, just make my own thing, and
Yeah.
I'll talk about that on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Make
I
that.
do. Yeah. And I do see how the creators of THM, like, I see how they have to protect their brand. They have to make sure that things
Yeah.
line up well with their brand. They can't just like let it be a free for all, because they have to be, somewhat protective of their baby, so to speak. But I'm very rebellious by nature, which
What?
I'm shocked. I know it's new information, people, but I also like to figure it out myself. Like, I don't want you to tell me rules. I'm not gonna sit here and adhere to rules just because you say rules. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
say
want to
for
know why.
rules, I'm gonna take the information and sort of like twist it on its head to see if I can figure something else different out. Or um, I'm very much so that way. And I also think that the more information that I absorb and learn and consider, the harder it is for me to stay um, following one specific thing. So,
Yeah,
I don't know how many years ago I listened to discussions on oxalates before Amy had, what was her name? Sally, is it
Sally
Sally Norton?
Norton.
Yeah. So before she had Sally Norton on, I think it might have been, um, we were living in Wisconsin, 2017-ish. I had started learning about oxalates and I was like, oh no. And before that, I had been learning about like phytonutrients or like anti-nutrients and stuff like that. And I was like, I have to get rid of all of these things. I have to do these things. And it was all with the premise of I need to allow my teeth and my bones to be as strong as possible. Can I stay away from things that deplete minerals from my body? And so the fact that they do use so much almond flour, it was one of those things where it was really hard to sit there and be like, yeah, well, I can jump on board with that. I do still use almond flour because I don't have an allergy, but I also make sure that it is mixed into other things so it's mitigated somewhat and the volume I get is much smaller. I don't snack on almonds the way that I used to. I don't like consume almond milk the way that I used to. Like there's just a whole variety of things that I don't do that they would say, yes, do these things, do these things. Make sure you do these things. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that they would say allulose is questionable at best.
Hmm.
Um,
I was out before allulose became popular, I think.
yeah, and as was I, but I can remember them saying something to the effect of the oses are kind of like a, a negative. And,
But
like
they're
stick
all
with
about the erythritol
they're
and the
100%
xylitol, like,
about a
so much.
like
It was too much for me.
yeah, and I found that my body does pretty well. It tolerates a lot of things really well, unless it is a carby thing. Like that's the one thing that my body
Yeah.
doesn't manage well. I got into the sourdoughing and stuff like that long before THM became part of my life. So when I saw that they did sourdoughing too, I'm like, yay, I can do this too. And then they would say things about how they were sourdoughing, and I'm like, my experience has taught me something different as far as like how I prefer to make things. So I'm just going to do this my own way. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm doing everything my own way. Am I
Mhm.
really doing Trim Healthy Mama? No, I'm not. And I know that they try to continue to grow and, share new information or fresh information or correct things once they learn better, they try to do better. And I think that, like you said, it's a reasonable way to approach health, especially if it's just your first starting point and you're not prepared to do something as intense as like a Whole30 or like Mediterranean or paleo or
Easy.
veganism or whatever it is that you may want to do. Oh yeah, keto.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable way to approach food to begin learning things,
Yeah.
and it does
Well, I
have
think
its
any
place.
diet is like that.
That's
Like,
true.
any of the diets out there,
Unless it's
my
like a
personal opinion
chicken
is
bread.
any of them that you choose, you look at all the options, you're like, "Well, this one makes the most sense." You
Yeah.
start there, and
Yeah.
then you move on, and, if it was something like veganism, you might have to have a complete paradigm shift, and
Sure.
change. But if you're like, I started with paleo, well,
Hmm.
not started, but did paleo, and it's like how I eat now is similar in certain ways, but I've tweaked it and learned, that dairy isn't so bad for me and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I feel like any diet, THM included, and even keto
Yeah.
included, or any of the iterations of keto, because keto isn't just one thing. Um, any of them, in my opinion, should be a starting point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you learn about yourself and you build your own diet. And
Yeah.
that's why I felt like I've grown out of every single diet club that I've been a part of, because I've just been creating my own diet and no one else has the same sensitivities or needs or desires that I do. And so why would I stick with someone else's formulation that they
Yeah.
formulated for themselves, or that they formulated to be the most common among a big group of people,
Right.
when I'm not the average of that big group of people?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if
yeah.
you're an outlier, it's definitely a more nuanced experience, and you have to really dig into it for yourself to be able to figure out how to make things work for you. I
Yeah.
also,
And I was just going to say real quick,
yeah,
the amount of people that actually are the average is actually a really small group of people, you
mm,
know? And so most everyone is going to deviate from the average. And it's only when you add it all together that you get that average, if
yeah,
that makes sense. So
yeah. So like,
the amount of people that actually are average is actually really small. Yeah.
it's not the median or the mean, or not the mean,
Right.
the mode,
Median
the
mode.
mode.
Yeah.
The
I always
most
do.
frequently noted plot
Yeah.
point. So, like your outlier experience all the way on this end of the scale, plus somebody else's experience all the way here, will still have you meeting in the middle. But that
And
doesn't
neither of
mean,
us are that.
and neither of you are that. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a good place to start.
Yes.
Just know that you are allowed to deviate and you are allowed to assess for yourself whether or not something makes a good impact on your body or if you feel like garbage. You're allowed to do that.
Exactly.
You're
Hi,
highly
Kathy.
encouraged to do that.
Kathy just got
Okay,
here.
We have about 5 minutes before my tiny humans start to require my attention. I don't know about yours, but
They're doing pretty good. I told them they could watch a movie, so they're like, I hope you just stay on your video all day.
no, mine are in the thick of working on their independent schoolwork lessons. So
Because you're a better mom than I am.
I don't think so. I don't know. We have been struggling hard this past week, and it's one of those things where I'm like, are we are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it to January 1st? I don't even know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
One day at a time. One day at a time.
Maybe 1 hour at a time. Okay,
Alan
so
had also asked how THM compares to paleo. And
yeah, I think it may
just
have been Alan who asked that question.
yes. And it's not, I don't know that it's a really close comparison because
No,
THM uses a lot of products
dairy, nuts,
and dairy
legumes,
and yeah,
grain.
grains. So I think it's pretty far from paleo.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely very departed from the concept of the paleo. You know, the only things that are truly off limits when it comes to a trim healthy mama way of eating, from what I understand, is white flour that has not been sourdough'd and white sugar, white sugar,
Mhm.
brown sugar, any kind of sucrose product or
Mhm.
anything that has, sugar in it.
Right.
They prefer you not to use white potatoes or white rice. They try to get you on more whole
Honey is a
grain.
no.
Say that again.
Honey is a no.
I think that they permit honey, and they do try to make it a sustainable way of life for a full family of people consuming it.
True.
So they do like to go in and say, if you're working toward weight loss, follow these things.
Yeah.
If you are trying to not only do weight loss for yourself, but feed an entire family, go ahead and give the children these extra things to support their growth because
Right.
they're a different stage of life than you are. So I do think that they add a lot of value to the space in
I
saying
agree.
you can eat this all together and make small modifications so that everybody's needs are met and you're
Yeah.
not slaving away in the kitchen for 17 hours a day.
Yeah.
So they do have value.
I like how they talk about eating differently for different stages of life
Hmm, hmm.
because that's one thing that I have not liked about certain diets where it's like, here's a diet, but you shouldn't eat it if you're pregnant. And you're
Yeah.
like, wait, aren't I still a person? Like, what aren't we
Yeah.
trying to find? Like, that's why I like the proper human diet from
So
the
human.
berries. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like if it's the proper human diet, it's the proper human diet, you know. And but
Mhm.
at the same time, it's like it can look differently for different stages of life, whether
Right.
you're, metabolically damaged and trying to lose weight, or if you're a growing child, or if you're a pregnant woman, or if you're, elderly. Like
Yeah.
there should be the idea that all of those people should eat exactly the same way, I think is kind of silly. And
Yeah.
so like just allowing for those variations and not saying this is a good food, this is a bad food,
Right.
across the board. It's like this is a food that can be helpful in certain stages of life and can be unhelpful in other stages of life. I
That's right.
think that's a really balanced and good way to approach food.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people that are in the diet or the anti-diet space on the interwebs that are like, food doesn't have morality. And I would argue that there are certain foods that do have morality, like
High fructose corn
Crisco,
syrup. Yeah.
high
Trans
fructose
fat.
corn syrup. Yeah,
Yeah.
ugh.
Dyes.
Canola oil might have some political morality to it,
Yeah.
but for the most part, if it's real food, there's no morality to it.
Right.
It's just sustenance. It's a matter of whether or not it is appropriate for you or for whomever you're feeding, and
Right.
you're not forced to eat everything that comes across your view.
Yeah. Just
You can
because
make
it's a
better choices.
just because it can be a good food doesn't mean that you have to eat a pound of it a day. you
Right.
know it's like you can choose to not eat a good food that
Right.
is appropriate for people to eat. You don't have to say, I because I choose not to eat it, it is a bad food that no one should ever eat.
Right.
It's like, no. And it's kind of like Levi with eggs. He chooses not to eat eggs, but he's not
Because
going to
it's
tell
good for
everyone
him.
that they're not allowed to eat eggs.
That's right.
It's
That's
a
right.
bad food for him, but that doesn't mean it's a bad food across the board.
Right. The Mediterranean diet, I think, don't they allow you to eat dates?
Yeah.
I think that
I
that's
mean,
permissible in that
yeah.
sort of
In
classification.
paleo, they do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, dates are not a good food because I will go through 2 pounds of dates in about 45 minutes without realizing it.
Yeah.
So, are dates a terrible food? No. Are they a terrible food for me and my body chemistry?
Mm-hmm.
Probably at this stage of my life, that's going to be a for sure stay away from food or red
Yeah.
light food or a stop, like a
Right.
no no for me.
Right.
But my
Don't keep in the
kids,
house.
yeah, oh my gosh. During during my pregnancy with Lauren, eating the Trim Healthy Mama things, they would tell you at the end of your pregnancy, go ahead and have some extra dates because it was good for
Yes.
whatever, for labor and
Cervical
things.
ripening.
Yeah. So I'm a person who has to have C-sections. I don't have enough cartilage, like with the TMJ. I also don't have enough cartilage between my two pelvic bones, so I couldn't really pass a fully developed infant. And so it was kind of silly for me to sit there and be like, "Oh, well, I need to eat dates because it's good for pregnant women who are
You're
close to
cute
labor."
though.
But I still ate, like half a pound a day
Yeah. They're
until the
so
state.
good.
How many
My
dates did you
God.
start with? And why are there not that many left? I don't ask you questions about your life, sir. Don't judge
Seriously.
me. I am pregnant.
Yeah. You don't ask a pregnant woman about their food choices.
I mean, it's one thing if he would have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna make bacon date like wrapped dates or this, that, or the other, try to like reserve some for me." But there was never any communication on that front. So they were fair game. And they were for the baby. It wasn't really me eating that
Seriously. You're eating for two.
baby.
Yeah. Think of the baby.
That's right. That's right. It's kind of whenever you're 5 years old and you say, "I'm full with dinner, but I have plenty of room for dessert because like
Yeah.
this is my stomach's like my dinner side, but this is my
Yes.
dessert side, and
Yeah.
that
That-
side
That's a
can really
scientific fact.
use." I mean, it is. It
It's
is.
just how
I
it
mean,
is.
it's been touted for decades at this point.
Yes. Yeah,
Makes sense to me.
it does.
All right.
I have personal experience that corroborates.
I only have like 38 years experience doing it,
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
you're an abstainer when it comes to dates. That's what Blaze says,
That's right,
which
because
is
my
true.
rebellious nature would say, "Just eat them all."
Yeah, yeah. And I'm that way. Like the abstainer and moderator thing. I
Yeah.
moderate some things just fine, like dark chocolate or whatever. But
Nope.
there are other things where I just know that I don't take a bite of it. Unless
Yeah,
I want to eat all of it.
that's right.
Otherwise, it will
I
be miserable.
I am not moderate on anything. To like decide to not do all the things until I feel the sense of like fullness. Like I could probably sit there and eat a few pounds of steak at one sitting just because like
Mm.
I can do it. Why not? Or I make candy that's low carb or keto friendly,
Mhm.
and I'll sit there and I'll eat all of them, eat all of them, eat all of them. And I'm like, oh, there were like 24 of those when I started. And now there's like 7 left. We might have an issue. So I'm like, I could just put them in the freezer. And Jared is really good at moderation. He's really,
Yeah,
really good at,
definitely. Too.
I'll take one and be content. And I'm like, no, no, I
Yeah.
need to like gorge myself at one moment and then I can just
Mm.
like fast the rest of the time. It's,
Mm.
feast or
I
famine all the time.
Yeah, I feel like I've actually really changed in the last 6 months. And I need to
Yeah.
do a video on this. I will, about how my appetite has changed. And I
Hmm.
feel like I'm very different. I don't know if it's from working on my gut health more,
Sure.
or what, but I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
very
I
freeing.
I have noticed some changes for me too. When I started Trim Healthy Mama, I was gung ho. I need to have breakfast by 7 a.m. Let's find something that I want to eat. Let's do that. Also, this sunlight is much, isn't it?
It's moving.
I was just super, super into it. Like, let's have the breakfast. Let's have the morning snack. Let's have the lunch. Let's have the afternoon snack. And we're doing 3 hours between everything. And so it was really like I was excited about that at that time. And now I'm like, if I don't eat breakfast till 10 a.m., I'm feeling pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
on Sunday mornings, I can't do that because, church and things. And so I'll eat at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I feel awful all day long. Why? Why do I feel
Mhm.
eating that early is a problem? I don't know why, but it
Mm.
just seems to have been like a threshold for me. Like that's an area where I'm
Yeah.
like, that changed. That has changed
Yeah.
much.
And I like not thinking about food. Like,
Right.
there have been diets, and I think the THM diet is one of those where food is really celebrated, and there's a lot of fun,
Mhm.
recipes and
Yeah.
things. And so at first it was like, "Oh, this is fun," and I spent so much time with that and doing the,
Yeah.
3 meals plus snacks a day. But then you just get to the point where you're just like, "I don't wanna spend all my time on food. I
Yeah.
would rather not think about it, actually." And
Right.
that's where I feel like I am now, where I don't have to think about it all the time, which is
Sure.
quite amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing whenever it's like a new hobby. I feel like anytime you start
Yes.
a new way of eating, it's a new hobby for you. And then after a while you become very well versed in your hobby and it's like, okay, what's the next thing to excite the brain because
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bored.
Yeah. Well, if you do want a food hobby,
Oh, I
THM
always
is a great diet for that, because they are all about, like, there's the simplicity of carnivore and BBBE. THM is the opposite.
opposite.
It's like, let's, like, experiment and do all these things and all these different ingredients and, like,
Take it to the
chemistry in
limit.
the kitchen. Yes. And, like, make it as fun and involved as possible.
Right.
And so if you're into that, which I can be there, like, at certain
Absolutely.
stages of life, and I really enjoyed that at that time, and I still enjoy doing that with, like, the egg white bread and experimenting and stuff, but it got to be too much with
I
the
mean,
THM. I couldn't keep
when
up.
when you're pulling out like 75% of your pantry ingredients for a single recipe, it becomes a little arduous. And
Yeah.
you're like, now I got to put all that back. Uh,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
thing, it may have tasted good when it was fresh, but then leftovers aren't so great. You're just kind of
Right.
like, was it worth it? That two
Yeah.
hours I spent making one meal, is it
Yeah.
worth?
Well, and then they even have, like, all the drinks and all the desserts
Oh
and,
my
like,
goodness.
so,
Yes.
I mean, it's really fun, and I do recommend, if you are keto and you are looking for some interesting recipes, their cookbooks are great. You just
They
have to
are.
ignore, half of the recipes that are the carb ones. But
But
they
just
do
buy the
have some
books
really
used.
great keto recipes. Yeah, they're
Okay.
very creative.
We
Anyways,
have
we've been
been
going for too long.
we've been going for like much too long, and I've already seen at least one of my tiny humans wander
Oh,
around,
peaking.
kind of like a shark. This room is like a glass fishbowl, and so they're just like they're making their rounds like a shark, and I'm in a cage. Fortunately,
Breathing,
nobody has popped up
breathing
back
on the
here.
glass.
It's a great room, except for those moments when I'm like,
Too funny.
can I just okay, for all of you who are part of the live stream, we really appreciate y'all being here today. For anybody checking out the replay, thank you also for being here. Check out Nili. I will go in and add her handle to the description box because I failed to get that done. I'm pretty sure most of y'all follow Nili though. So but we hope to continue doing this every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So be sure to join us. And next week will be what day? The 20th. So we're
That sounds cool.
planning to be on your channel
Yep,
on
my
the
channel
20th.
next week. Yep,
Perfect.
and Blaze
And
is reminding everyone to hit the like button and
yeah,
spread the
go ahead.
love.
Yeah,
Yes.
do that. Do that. All right, y'all. We will see you in our next videos on our respective channels, and this time next week on Nili's channel.
Yep.
Bye.
And leave any comments or questions down below if you have any topics that you want us to talk about next week.
Yes, that too.
All right.
All right. We'll see y'all. Bye.
Bye, everybody.